that ahead of time, and it shocked me to know there were only 5 events into the season. So a long way to go, and I cannot wait to see how this is going to turn out. Lots of great storylines that are building, and we're going to have some early separation here in the points list that some of our players are going to really have to catch up in order if they want to get those goals they want this year.
Yeah, a lot of exciting stuff, a lot of really, close competition. So let's look at this past weekend. Let's look at a graphic that gives you an idea of the events that we played this past weekend right outside Chicago. As we said, weekend 2 in Oak Brook Terrace. Wonderful place. Thank you to Robin and the whole crew at the Holiday Inn. So we had the Winmau Darts Championship into the Galaxy Gold Cup into the Magic Darts Masters. So we will start off with the Winmau Darts Championship on Saturday morning, and that's event 3 on the whole circuit. And you saw that Gary Mawson. But before we get to Gary, let's sort of walk through the day, notable matches, things that Sean and I may have seen, and then Pete's perspective from the floor. So let's start with Pete about sort of way the tournament's set up for people that don't know. Maybe touch on seeding a little bit. Registry, some of the little things that were different this year than they have been in the past.
So as we have in the past, we had 16 seeds coming in, and we seed off of the 20 event order of merit, which is updated on the website now after the weekend. So if you'd like to see what the lay of the land looks like, head over there, champdarts.com.
We've got that for you, Pete, later on. If you want to look at that, we've got that.
So going into the weekend, obviously, registration, we typically would close registration in the past, the Monday of the weekend, the tournament weekend, given the fact that we have gaming now, which is really exciting, and we're in 20 states, which is really exciting, and there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on. We close registration for tour card holders a full week and a half to 2 weeks in advance. And so that gives us a chance to then, we've got this associates list, right? And how do you get on the associates list? Well, you play Q School or you play our summer series, and you get points on the associates list. And we use that list to fill a bracket of 64 should we not get 64 tour card holders. I'm happy to say that we only had to pull one associates member for the Saturday and a couple for the Sunday. But the turnout was great for tour card holders. But if you're interested in getting on that list, we've got another summer series event in Pittsburgh coming up tomorrow. It's the CDC shootout, so you can get yourself some points towards that list and maybe come join us. But the draw then happens a week in advance, so we can get the matchups over to our partners at Alt Sports Data, and then they've got to do the handicapping and the odds making, and there's some sausage making goes on behind the scenes, and then they send out the odds to the books. And certainly DraftKings has taken a big interest in us, which is huge. I mean, there's none bigger than them. So if you're going to get picked up, the biggest kid on the block picking you up is a good thing. And we're really excited about the opportunities of where that goes. I'm hoping that by the end of the year, we're in almost all states that we can be legally able to be wagered on. So some exciting stuff there. And I mean, the events, start with event 3.
Yeah, what was the feel in the room as things were leading up? Because we talked about it, it's been a while, so things are just starting to get kicked up.
It's always good when people come back together, right? There's always a lot of reunification, and obviously we had the weekend in Indy, and you mentioned that we were off for a month and a half, and so there's a lot of getting to back in touch with each other, having a couple of beverages at the bar before the weekend starts, and kind of just making sure that everybody's doing well. And it's a big while they want to beat the heck out of each other on the hockey, the vast majority of these guys are good friends, right? And so it really is a big family. You're traveling around the country together, and or the continent together. And so, it was a really good feeling, really good energy, really positive. It was interesting that first event, the old guys, win one for the old guys, right? You got Mawson, resurgent Gary Mawson, a resurgent Nick Lindberg, who was there, almost from the beginning. Gary was there from the beginning. So, really good stories written in that first event.
And Sean, you and I had the pleasure of being in a booth, and you brought that scenario up, right? That was sort of the theme for a lot of that day, was the old guard and the new guard. So give me some of your take on that, and then some of those great matches that we had privy to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It was the event of the old guard, right? Or at least the older guard, I would say. The OG, Gary Mawson, only player in CDC history to play in every single Continental Cup, hasn't won since 2018, right? The first event in 2018 was the last main event that he won. He did win the Continental Cup that year in 2018, but he hasn't won since then. And I know that just look at the picture of him in the winner's circle, and you tell me that's not pure joy on the face of a player, and I will be shocked, right? So excited for him, excited to get him back in that winner's circle. He deserves it. He's been a mainstay on tour and really grinds in order to get the job accomplished. His scoring, his finishing was absolutely phenomenal. He was the one event winner this past weekend who won based on his finishing. He had some decent scoring, but it was his finishing that really sealed the deal for him. And then again, the older guard, right? How about Jeff Springer? Turns 1 year older on that same day on his birthday after just winning the DP Chicago event the night before on his birthday, and then just runs through the field and makes it all the way to the final. It was a really cool double storyline there between Lindbergh and Mawson, and then, of course, Jeff Springer's birthday.
Yeah, he was running on birthday magic the whole weekend. And trying to convey the depth of the field these days. You look over the Dart Connect results, and it's, I hope this comes across right, but at a glance, you look at the players who are eliminated in something like a round of 32. Ross Snooks, Stowe Buntz, Bill Anderson, Leonard Gates, Kylie Edmonds, Adam Savada. Those are players that didn't get past the round of 32 on our opening event on Saturday. So it just speaks to, Pete, where we've been, where we're going. We're 10 years into this now, and you tie that to individual match averages. You're in the 90s. You've got 90 average winning averages, not across the board, but they're sprinkled around enough in the top, and they start coming in top 32, and they start solidifying in the top 16, and that's a real different place for us.
No doubt. It's where we kind of dreamed of when we started this thing back in 2015. It's been a long, slow kind of road to get there, but the players keep responding, right? And they're only going to get better the more often they get in these rooms together and they just beat each other's heads in, the better off the averages you're going to see. You mentioned Mawson. He's always been a good finisher, but when you're talking about averages in the 90s, you're not missing, right? We've all seen players at mid-level, even upper-level players when they're maybe not challenged regularly. Yeah, they score well, but sometimes they let a couple darts, 2-3 darts go on the doubles. You can't do that here. You can't do that here in advance, right? It might get you through your first round match, but it certainly isn't getting into the top 16 or into the money. So it's fantastic to see it. The competition is just, the top 24 guys are capable of coming in and winning an event. And I actually firmly believe that. So it's a great situation to be in as a promoter.
And so the two semis we saw were nice, tight contests with Springer 7-5 over a really resurgent Nick Lindbergh, and Gary Mawson 7-5 over Jake Womack, who we'll see as we progress had a really, really strong weekend as well. And then we get to Gary Mawson facing Jeff Springer in the final, and Mawson was the winner there, 7-4. Anything on those matches, Sean, that we covered?
So actually, I'm going to take a step back real quick and just talk about probably one of the craziest matches we've saw all weekend long, and that I've seen really as a CDC play-by-play, and that is the Adam Savada, Alex Spellman top 32 match that we got on stream. If you run through it leg by leg, it's insane. Adam Savada ends up in the lead 4-1. He had at that point four games where he had a shot at the double, and he hit him in all four of those. Alex Spellman only had one leg where he had a shot at the double, and he won that. That being said, the averages after the 4-1 lead was Adam Savada at a 107, Alex Spellman just over 103. And then from there, Savada never gets a match dart. Alex Spellman rattles off 1-for-1 on the double, 1-for-1 on the double, 1-for-1 on the double. And then in the last leg, it took him 4. But we're talking Adam Savada was on 60 when he hit the one double. He was on 20 when he hit another double. He was on 40 in the last leg decider with a shot there sitting, and Spellman mechanically just took him out, averaging a 99 to a 98 and still losing that one 5-4 was Adam Savada. So that just goes to what you're saying about those averages. They are insane at sometimes. But the semifinals were great. I loved them. Sorry, go ahead. I'll let someone else talk about the semifinals.
I just want to make note, Savada Spellman, a burgeoning rivalry there that you may hear about again over the course of this recap.
Yeah, absolutely. It was awesome to see overall. I was really happy to see the people in the top 4 that we saw there, and to have a Jeff Springer, Gary Mawson final where the storylines, it didn't matter to us. It mattered to us, but it didn't matter to us who won out of those two. We were getting a great story out of it, and it was really cool to see Gary Mawson get the job done. The look on his face, the smile on his face, and that winning pitcher tells the entire story.
And we're going to go now to Gary for some words after his victory.
I felt that I had the game in me. I needed to bring it out. And if I could bring it out, I could win. And it happened. And that's the best feeling ever. I mean, I've done this before, but the guys that are playing today are incredible. There is a depth in this field that we've never seen before. And to come out on top, it doesn't get any better than that.
Congratulations to the Mauler, your Winmau Darts Championship winner on Saturday. So a big congratulations. So we ran a doubleheader on Saturday. So we'll move ahead to the Galaxy Gold Cup. That was Saturday evening, July 13th, event number 4 as we progress on the road to the Continental Cup. And you see there the Neon Nightmare out on top. And we'll do a quick run through again, sort of take a look at the scores. I'll pull up Dart Connect. So Pete, same sort of setup to you. Give us your behind the control desk take on as things rolled into Saturday night.
It seems like every weekend we have one event where the seeds crash and burn, and we have one event where the seeds just it's all chalk all the time. And this was the revenge of the seeds. Buntz, Taylor, Mawson again, Savada. It was the players you'd expect to get through to the quarterfinals and later did. Some notable names to me though that I like to see perform well. Shout out to Dustin Holt. Dustin's been a guy who's a traditional soft tip player. Really wanted to give the CDC a go and play some steel, and played really, really well. Ended up in the top 16, but certainly that's he feels like a milestone for him. And another guy that I think it's good to see do well. We haven't really talked about before is Chris Caldwell. I mean, here's a guy that kind of flies under the radar. Typically he's in, he's out, in the top 32, getting through, making that next move. He's a guy that's got the game in him, and it'll be interesting to see if you can use this, put in a new floor, if that makes sense, right? Is this now the floor, and do they then start to gap up from here? So, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Danny Baggage, who didn't have a particularly good weekend one, coming back. And I think, while he didn't win an event, he's got to be happy with the way he performed, in all 3 events, to be honest.
Yeah, I think there were a few players, just as you said, did really well, even though they didn't get victories, performed well across the weekend and put them in good stead, as we'll see when we look at the points in a little while. And you touched on, as I looked on my notes on who we covered on these games, I see one of the associates. We'll save that little as we get past all 3. We'll go back and we'll look at those associate players and how they performed and that feel. And before I throw it to Sean, you touched on Dustin Holt. Sean knows I was extremely impressed in this particular event. Was the start of it. We saw him on the feature stream quite a few times, and he just got better and better. And Sean was right next to me for that. Right, that was a lot of fun to watch. No,
it absolutely was. And again, it's someone who travels all the time. I've gotten to see him play multiple times just based on a lot of the soft tip tournaments that I've been lucky enough to commentate on. He does travel to some of those other steel tip tournaments, but to see him in the CDC and not just perform well, but to perform at a high level for him, to give him a little bit of confidence going into hopefully the rest of this year and everything else that he wants to do and accomplish. It would be really cool to see him in the Continental Cup. He'd be one of those players that every year we seem to have some new high rise talent. That would be an absolute thing that would happen with him for sure, to be in that top 16 and make a run. And he could shock some people in those runs. So good first weekend for him here in Chicago. And I'm expecting to see him do well in 3 weeks if he's up for it.
And go ahead, Pete.
In every story, you look at the who's hot, who's not, the form list, if you will. Looking at the other end of it, you've got to look at a guy like Sylvain Bourdeaux, who, made the Continental Cup, ended up playing in the cross border, really had a coming out party last year. And I know he's not going to be necessarily happy with where he is. Seems like he sophomore season, maybe a little bit of a sophomore slump, but we know he has it in him. But he's the guy, you mentioned, Sean, what got me thinking about him is he's the guy who comes in and it's like, wow, where did this guy come from, right? How the heck did he end up in the Continental Cup in his first year of a tour card last year? So there's those stories too.
And look at here, Sean. I'm looking over my list of matches that we covered. You get to a quarterfinal there. Look at those names: Alex Spellman, Adam Savada again. So they clash again. Savada gets him 6-4 there. We saw a big day from Savada in the evening, and some remaining names kept going through. Gary Mawson makes his way through to the semis. Spellman, as we just talked about, getting through to the quarters. Dustin Holt we talked about, and then Stowe. Stowe, as I sort of touched on, based on the names on who got dispatched, we saw him top 32. He knocked out early on Saturday, so it was important to make his run. So we'll get to his finals. But then there's Jacob Taylor. We watched sort of a slow burn all the way through the Galaxy Gold Cup, right? We were tracking him. Give me your perspective on what we saw from Jacob. Yeah,
so early on, there was a little bit of a struggleness to him. His first match out the gates was an 83, and then the second match was just an 80. So those first two matches, he definitely struggled to get through them, but there were moments. There was like a leg or two or a leg and a half where we just saw that Jacob Taylor from 2022 that dominated, that won 3 events that year, that was coming off the Continental Cup final the year previous, right? And then from that, he just started snowballing. I kind of, I hit on it a little bit, like this is a little bit of the Jacob Taylor that I'm expecting to see sometimes. And then he fires out with a 103.43, but seemingly out of nowhere. But the beautiful thing for us is that we got to see him on stream those first 2 matches. So it almost was not shocking when we saw that quarterfinal 103 when he got to that point. It was cool.
You could feel it coming, right? It was the moments were there, and it was like, if this thing clicks, he's going to have one of those games, which he did against Leonard Gates in the quarters. And he's a good company man. You kept talking about that. He is a Galaxy sponsored player, so we put on the Galaxy Gold Cup, and Jacob Taylor doesn't disappoint for the powers that be over at Galaxy Barrel Design.
Oh, absolutely. And it helps. That jersey, I'm telling you, I can still talk about it all day long. The pop of blue that thing has on camera, it actually looks way different off camera, but on camera, that pop is really there in that blue. It was really cool to see the new jersey showing up for him.
So then the clash that was the finals of Stowe Buntz and Jacob Taylor absolutely didn't disappoint. 7-5 to Buntz, but both players mid to high 90s. It all just sort of came together for them right there, right?
Yeah, Jacob Taylor averages 98.5 in the final and loses 7-5. That tells you where our game's at, right? Stowe was able just to take advantage of those checkouts. He does that from time to time. His scoring power is always fantastic. The entire event, he led in 180s, he led in 140s, he led in average overall. So it was good to see Stowe Buntz kind of come into weekend 2 and perform like Stowe Buntz can in at least one event. So that was good to see.
Sean. That's a good point, because Stowe, you're right, his scoring is generally always there. but his doubles can give him trouble. And when he crashes out, it's typically because the doubles aren't clicking. But they certainly did, in event 4.
So Pete, just from a different perspective, I always think, is there anything interesting that goes out there on the tournament floor? People are watching on the stream and they watch the competitors, but the players have to sort of transfer their game, right? Sometimes from being out on the floor and being put on the stream, or vice versa, being selected to play first couple of matches and then they've got to settle out there. What's the feeling, and what's the, do you see any trouble for the players that transitioning in those matches?
It's the more experienced guys can play anywhere. Where I think, and to be fair, we've done it differently this year. We're doing more what the PDC does, right? We're pulling whole boards and putting them on the 2 streams. And by the way, that's another shout out. I mean, getting that second stream up is pretty cool. So now we're giving people the opportunity to watch not just one match at a time, but 2 live stream matches at a time. But it's those new players. It's the lower ranked guys, the new guys getting their tour cards, and in one case was an associates guy, right? And they're coming up out of the gate, and boom, they're on the stream. And it's tough enough to get ready to play in that room, and now you got to do it in front of the world. And so I think that there's just naturally little debut nerves for those guys in there. It's funny, when we first started streaming, there were players that we would pull random matches, and there were players that would be like, you're not going to put me on the stream. Why am I going to stream? Grumble. And the flip side of that, I'm never on stream. Why am I never on stream? And it's the give and take of that was always fun. But now up until the quarterfinals or semifinals, where you're going to be. You're going to be on the. If you're on the stream, you're going to be on the stream. So it's really the new guys that it is. But I think sometimes. And maybe I'm just attributing something that's not there, but sometimes, you struggle a little bit, and then you start knowing the cameras are on you, and now you start to push a little bit because I got to put a good show on, and it's not going. And I think that's kind of sometimes a little element that we don't talk about, but I'm sure it's in the back of the guys' heads, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on a stream board and I'm stinking it up with the 73 average, and it happens. I mean, people just have off games, but I think it's amplified when you're on the stream.
Yeah, you bring up a topic that I expressed to Sean over the weekend as we were watching who was getting a chance to play, and some players weren't featured because we only have a certain amount of events and boards, and you can only select so many boards. So there were players. One specifically that always came to mind was Leonard Gates. Leonard Gates just didn't have a chance early on to be on anything. It was a case of he had to advance to a quarterfinal. Or a semi to be on stream. And I remember back in those days that you're referencing, it's sort of like the chicken or the egg. Is it a case of, do players have to earn their way from the floor to opportunities on stream, or do you train them by putting them on stream in front of a camera and let them work that out? It's I don't know if there's a perfect answer to that.
There probably isn't, but they're professional players, or at least that's their dream. That's why they're there. And if you want to compete, you want to be the best, you got to compete against the best in whatever scenario you're thrust into. It's not like we had some matches that were floor matches and some matches that were stage matches with wild crowds. It's the same feeling. It's just that there's there's the ever watchful eye.
And the person who performed the best in that ever watchful eye on Saturday evening was the Neon Nightmare, Stowe Buntz. So let's listen to his words after his victory.
I only won because he gave me an opportunity, and he was clutch on his outs. That I think 63 checked twice on the trip, 13 double 12 both times. He was bang bang or bang 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 on the outs, and that last one, he just gave me the opportunity, and if I took advantage of it, I did not score him. I did not play him. I think we were pretty close. It just so happens I got he missed it, I got it, and the 131 to set me up on the 16, I think was just a teeny bit of pressure, not much, but a little bit of pressure.
So congratulations again to Mr. Stowe Buntz, your Galaxy Gold Cup winner. So that was Saturday, everybody. So, we get done there. The whole CDC circus roams around the hotel for a couple of hours, and we do it all when the sun comes up on Sunday. So before we get to that event on Sunday, though, just a couple of housekeeping things. Want to remind you, those in the chat, welcome aboard. We welcome your comments and questions. We will take your questions later on in the show. Please like our social media pages, like our YouTube, and subscribe and hit the notification bell. Additionally, if you want to keep up on everything CDC related, subscribe to our newsletter. You can click on the link in the comments or scan the QR code on our social media platforms to subscribe. There'll be great articles in there on how to better your game, how to analyze the game, great deals on upcoming tickets and events that we've got. So stay up to date with the CDC newsletter. All right. So we got a whole lot of cool stuff to talk about, guys. Let's move into Sunday.
Can I piggyback onto that just for 1 second with the newsletter?
Yep.
Folks, if there's something you want to see in there, the content that you want to see that we're not giving you, send us a chat. Give us a message on Facebook. Send us an email to info@champdarts. We're getting a feel for this. KJ McGlynn's been amazing at putting this out, but we want to make it content that you're interested in. So if there's anything you got in mind, let us know. We're all ears.
Without a doubt. Excuse me, I was taking a sip of water while
I can
Pete gave us a break. No. All good. So now on Sunday, so we wake up and we are ready to tackle the Magic Darts Masters, and that's event number 5 on the road to the Continental Cup Tour Finals Championship, and you see the winner, Excalibur David Cameron. So let's talk a little Magic Darts Masters, what we saw, what unfolded. Now, the one thing traditionally, the player who's got the best winning percentage in CDC history, one Larry Butler, just happened to have been selected to open up the streaming board on Sunday. And there's never it's never a bad choice on Sunday to take the inaugural Continental Cup champion. So that's who we saw. And he opened up against Gary French. So let's all pull up our results, and we'll go to Pete first. Give us some stuff on Sunday's Magic Darts Masters from either the floor or as we progressed.
Sundays are always a different feel in the room. It's getaway day, especially now that we're starting the event. There's one event and it starts at noon. So there's a lot of guys that have flights out at night. It's not the same level of camaraderie as there is on the Saturday. It's people they want to get in, they want to do their job, go to work, and kind of get out and go home. And so, from a tournament director's perspective, that's ideal because there's no needing to go find somebody, right? The guys are generally pretty good at getting to their boards, but Saturday afternoon, evening event, there's sometimes you got to go chase somebody down. They're out having a conversation or whatever. They just forget where they are.
A conversation, yes.
Yeah, conversation. They're out having a little yuck. But Sunday that doesn't happen, and so we just blow through that bracket, and I mean they hover, waiting for the matches to be over. So from a tournament director standpoint, that's great because we got to break down. So get through, get done, get the heck out of my tournament hall, so that we can spend the next 3 or 4 hours tearing all the stuff down and packing it out. From the event itself, I mean. Yeah, it's the All Canada show up top, right? Cameron Smith. Good to see Jeff do well here. Jeff had, his struggles in terms of travel are legend, and this was no different, right?
It's crazy.
He gets in. He doesn't have his. They lose his luggage again. He doesn't have his darts again. Thankfully, I remember Kylie Edmonds has a set that he gave him, and he just happened to have him with him, so that worked out real well. But they're new; they're not not worn in. He likes to use more of a worn in set, so you're just all discombobulated. And which, by the way, I love that word. But
but I also when I saw that note about like Edmund still had a set, my mind was like, oh gee, I appreciate that you valued them so much. They're still down the bottom of the travel bag. Like, oh wait a minute, let me move the dirty socks. I think I still have them.
Kylie's a bright guy. Kylie probably knew that this might happen at some point, right?
Now that's a good friend.
It's funny, but Danny Lobby going into the cross-border challenge, he's had so many travel problems. He shipped me a set of his darts. Just, hey, by the way, here's a set. Bring them. Just in case. Now that's not an open invitation for everybody just to ship darts to my house, but I keep them. But it was good.
Peter
to get.
Citera,
maybe I need to have a couple sets of Jeff Smith. Interesting. Actually, throw some of his legacy sets. They're my go-to set when I play League. But seriously, it was really good to see him kind of come back, put it right. He's a guy that's a threat any event he's in. Talk about finishing. I mean, that's his bread and butter, right? So to see him get there into that final and play Cameron, who ends up winning, was really good.
So, Sean, we talked about some of the players that we thought we needed to see big performances, and the names have been out there. And in a Danny Baggish, Jeff Smith, even Jim Long. Jim Long had a good weekend on his board, but he shows up in the semis here in the Magic Darts Masters. So, talk about some of the recollections and the big moments that you saw on Sunday.
Well, the big thing from Sunday, first of all, is that's four semifinalists that did not have a semifinal up until that moment in the weekend, right?
Exactly.
So it's four guys that, have struggled on the Saturday and get to Sunday, not necessarily struggle, but quarterfinal, but get to Sunday and your goal is to now make the weekend right, and finish the best that you can. Jeff Smith, those travel issues on Friday obviously affected him on Saturday. Stowe Buntz also had the same travel issues and it affected him that first event on Saturday. And then he happened to pick it up in that second event, but he's throwing his own darts versus, having to get used to new ones. And it's just good to see those guys, the top end talent, right? Those are 4-seeded players three seeded players. And then Jeff Smith, as soon as he continues to play in the CDC throughout the season, I'm sure he'll be a seeded player here shortly. I think he's 19 points away from even having a seed, and that's insane in 5 events. So it is great to see those guys perform well. Danny Baggish is a good friend. I've done commentary with him multiple times. So to see him, knowing how little he's able to kind of prepare and to have the success that he was, I know that meant a lot to him in the semifinal. And then David Cameron, Jeff Smith final. Hey, that's the second one of the season. And again, it goes David Cameron's way. So Jeff Smith now finds himself way behind in the point list. But yeah, it was really cool to see those guys that had struggled early in the weekend that are those big name players as well that ended up having a great Sunday.
Yeah, and to your comment and to the depth of field, yeah, there's some really dangerous players floating around that were unseeded this weekend. And of course, of quality that they won't be unseeded for long, but there was some major sharks floating around in that field. And one thing jumps out there, looky, top 16. Do we have a grudge match? Adam Savada, Alex Spellman. Look at that. Do you have the results for us, Sean?
Yeah, absolutely. Savada got it 6-0 actually over Spellman, which is obviously the big one of the day. Spellman struggled this past weekend. We got to make that perfectly clear.
Certainly, as coming in as the one seed, right? Not that the inherent pressure of that one seeding position.
Absolutely. And I talked to him on Saturday evening, late Saturday evening, because he is always a fantastic person just to chat with. And he will dissect everything that he does from a dart standpoint. And he told us on stream when he was playing that he found 8 different throws throughout that match that he was trying out. And as someone who practices constantly, is very, very analytical on his throw, to have 8 different attempts at trying to figure out his throw, and that's a struggle. And it's not something that he'll figure it out because he is that analytical in his game. But to have to do that kind of on the fly is tough. And that does not create a confident throw going into the weekend. So he has a lot of work left to do. The good news, he's still got 11 events left to do that. 9 events left to do that.
That was a point I was going to make. I mean, when's the last time you saw Alex Spellman outside the top 10? And that's where he is right now. But again, it's still early. He's a guy, and Ant mentioned Jeff Smith. These are both guys that they can come in and pull a Buntz, right? They have the ability to come in and just whitewash 3 events and go through the field, and now you're sitting on top and sitting pretty. So, while I agree, certainly Alex nor Jeff are going to be happy with the way they performed overall this weekend. There's 2 guys that can get themselves back into it real quick. It's those 2.
Undoubtedly. So, but we see one guy, though, be the first one to take two titles in the final, a little back and forth between, the former WDF World Cup champions, Jeff Smith and David Cameron. And Cameron takes it 7-6, as you said, not only his second tour title of this season, but the second one over Jeff. So, Jeff's got a score to settle. But Sean Green was able to catch up with David Cameron after his victory. So let's hear from Excalibur.
Said, Jeff's a great shot, of course, and I know that. He knows that as well. But you know what? I definitely feel so comfortable playing against him. For some reason, I was very relaxed, and we just usually have great matches. But, yeah, I mean, it happened that I almost gave it away, but I didn't. I just kept my composure and just stood with it, and it worked out really well.
So congratulations again, David Cameron. So, I mean, my humble opinion, a wonderful weekend of darts, some great compelling storylines, and a lot now that unfolds as we march out over the summer. So I think this is a good spot. I'm going to ask Jeff in production, let's pull up the points list. All right, let's take a look at the points list, and then we'll discuss, who's sitting where after 5 events, as Sean touched on, 5 out of 14. So we still have 9 events still to play. So a lot in there to play for. David Cameron, as expected, you win 2 events, you're up there up on the top. But you co-winners on the weekend winners, Buntz and Mawson move up there. Smith with two runner-up positions in the 5 events is in your 4th spot. Gates is a weekend 1 winner in the 5th position, and then other guys that we've just talked about have put in solid performances in Jacob Taylor, Danny Baggas, Jacob Womack, round out your top 8. So, guys, give me some perspective on some of those names all the way down through top 20, and then we'll talk about where these players are playing to go. So, Pete.
Yeah, a couple of things that stand out to me. I mean, obviously, looking at the top, those are the guys you expect to see. That top 10 is just lethal. But Doug Boehm wasn't there this weekend. Had a conflict he could not resolve, and he's still sitting there in 16th. And then you got to talk about Jules van Dongen. Real struggle for him this last weekend. He's obviously got a lot going on, and I think the weight of the world is on his shoulders right now. And here's a guy that you just can't help but cheer for. I mean, he's just passionate. He wants to do well, and he loves, playing for his country. And he's just everything you'd like as a fan, right? And he's definitely got a lot of work to do to put stuff right. I hope, just from a friend perspective, that he can get that all worked out. Larry Butler, not used to being in 19th position on the tour points list. This is new for him. Obviously, since the heart attack he recovered from, thank God. But he hasn't been that low in a long time, since the beginning of CDC. And so, he's another guy that's got it in him. Maybe watching what Gary Mawson did these guys have kind of been going back and forth for forever, right? So maybe watching what Mawson did will put a little fire under him for weekend 3. But yeah, I mean, look at how tight from 2 to 8, or I mean, you can even say 2 through 10, but from 2 through 8, let's look at how tight it is right now. Any one of those guys, one good weekend can set them apart. The next weekend is going to be kind of like moving day, right? It's going to be moving weekend. Obviously, David Cameron's going to want to look to put some more distance between him and the field. But those guys that are right there behind him, chasing him, are going to look to have some big days and see if we can turn somebody else on the top of make a new king, as it is, on the top of the list.
Really funny, Pete, how our brains work. Number 16, Doug Bain was the first name that jumped out at me as well. Just that he's in such a solid position after missing 3 out of the 5 events. So
he is. I know he didn't want to miss it. I've talked to him pretty extensively.
But
he wants to be there.
But you're touching on, bodes well based on his weekend 1 performance, right? It's sort of it's a kudos, and so he's still got firm footing enough to come in and, get back into the swing of things as we make the march towards, the fall and the Continental Cup.
Yeah. I look at it as he didn't lose himself a Continental Cup spot. He didn't come to a weekend, and he's still in a provisional Continental Cup spot. So couldn't have gone any better for Doug Bain in that case.
Sean, give us your take on those 20 and, what jumps out at you from both a surprisingly good perspective and a maybe a disappointing perspective based on caliber of player.
Yeah. So first thing I'm going to say is that right now there are 5 seeded players: Jules, Keith Way, Jason Brandon, Larry Butler, and Danny Lobby, who are not currently in the top 16 right now in this point list. So there's some guys that definitely are used to having a lot of success, that have a lot of work left to do to get back up to those spots. That being said, how about Dave Richardson? Is a surprising one there at number 14 in a good way, just kind of sneaky, winning a few matches each time, right? And talk about a guy who can average 106 out of nowhere. Dave Richardson, kind of that old school player. To see him kind of up there in that list is really cool to see. Of course, Spellman at 11 is something that we touched on earlier. And again, Mawson at that 3 spot is just really cool to see now at this point. A lot of matches, a lot of points still left to be had this season, but it's a really cool start to see some of those names. And how about Sean Mitchell down there at 20th? DPNY in his first season here in the CDC. Could be another one of those guys like a Doug Bain 2 years ago, like a Sylvain Bordeaux last year, that can kind of jump up there and be a surprising addition to the Continental Cup if he makes a run.
Without a doubt, that's a good pull. Really accomplished player, really skilled, who's really starting to put together a really good resume, and a lot of good things to come from Sean Mitchell. So now we've got a couple of really cool things to sort of tweak about, but let's stay with that tour points list. But let's see, we've got a great Tony Cullen. Tony Cullen enjoyed our streams. He's got both the iPad and his iPhone up as we were presenting 2 streams, and we appreciate that. These days with darts, you need multiple platforms and multiple monitors. 2 streams of action were awesome, says D Productions. We greatly appreciate that. We're very, very proud this year that we were able to offer stream 2, as we call it, and that was a full second board. So you need tabs on your computer for Dart Connect, and you need multiple monitors now for Championship Dart Circuit action. So, of course, we've got 16 players that are headed towards the Continental Cup, and we'll talk about that in a little bit about where that is. But in October, the players will compete. The top 16 will compete for the Tour Championship. So, that you heard Pete talk about that, about Bain's position at 16. And, that's where these players are headed to compete for a prestigious championship after a long format steel tip tour in North America. But there's also a lot of that's the base. That's the ice cream, is the Continental Cup. There's a lot to this Sunday. There's a lot of whipped cream and nuts and cherries on top of this. And I want to turn to my partner now, Peter, to give us an announcement on the 2 positions that were put back into play, if you will, based on Matt Campbell winning the North American Championship in New York. So that was a World Championship spot and a Grand Slam spot that, based on PDC rule, Matt Campbell is unfortunately ineligible to participate.
Yeah, for those that might not know, going in, we have from our points list, we send the top U.S. player and the top Canadian player on the tour points list to the World Championship, every year. But unfortunately for Matt, I feel for the guy. Obviously, he'd love to have those spots. That World Championship spot could do a lot for him to help him retain his tour card. But the rules are what they are, and so he's not eligible to have that World Championship spot, nor is he eligible for the Grand Slam. And so the third World Championship spot is going to go to. It's going to go to the top player on our points list that is not otherwise qualified. So, whoever the top player is that does not already have a berth at the end will go into the World Championship. And then, just like we did last year, the Grand Slam spot where Stowe Buntz, legendary, kind of coming out party, right, is going to once again go to the winner of the Continental Cup. And so there's even more to play for at the Continental Cup, which is really exciting because those 16 guys, any of them are capable of winning it. So really excited to see that.
And we've got a graphic that we'll talk over a graphic that gives us sort of the rundown on the additional opportunities to the PDC if that's available. So Pete filled us in there. Couple of things at play. We looked at David Cameron at the top of that list. That's the tour points list held this year. So at the end of this season, the player who's finishes number one, that's your top item, will be awarded the Jay Tomlinson Trophy for the most overall points. In addition, that player now has the opportunity to enter directly into Phase 2 of 2025 PDC Q School. So for those unfamiliar with, why is that a big deal, is PDC Q School has two phases. You've got a nearly 4 or 5 day phase 1 that's, open entry, and you've got to either win the day and get in on order of merit to get into Phase 2. And in Phase 2, the players that are in Phase 2 already are players that have former PDC tour card holders for the past year, right? So we've been given the opportunity to have our top player at the end of the season to register right into that. And that's pretty cool, don't you think, boys?
Yeah, it's huge.
I think it's huge. It's something that hasn't gotten a lot of play yet, even though we've announced it. And so having somebody that close, all you got to do now is have a good run, and here you are as a PDC tour guide holder, which is you get to kind of move up, right? Leave us and go play with the best in the world.
Also, sorry, what I also
Sean.
really like is that it actually might give a player from North America that wins this even more of a desire to go to Q School and actually try to get their PDC tour card. Someone like a David Cameron to go over there and attempt it. Someone like a Stowe Buntz, who has said many times that he's fine where he is. He's got his priorities in straight, but if you're already in the second phase of tour school, might as well go and see what happens, right? It'd be a great thing for Jeff Smith to be able to have again, right? So there's a lot of players that maybe wouldn't take the opportunity to go to Q School that might be able to take that opportunity now.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's at the heart of it. It's giving the start of a conversation that's been had to give regional tours, and we're one of them, a regional affiliate, more opportunities to have the players that develop here chances to earn PDC tour cards. So yeah, it's a big deal to be able to slide right into that Phase 2. And Mr. Savada is in the chat, and he's tweaking Sean a little bit. He says, come on, Sean, don't say he struggled, raining on his parade. Yes, we know how well you played, Adam.
I appreciate that the comment also cuts out the second part of that where he says, yeah, I don't think I've seen him play like that before either. So he agreed with me for sure.
So let's go back to the graphic, and we'll try and we're being a little too wordy about it, but quickly. So then, the highest ranked Canadian and the highest ranked United States player both get berths in the World Championship. Now, of course, inherently, whomever that Jay Tomlinson gets that as well, right? So whichever nation that they represent, the opposite nation in the rankings, then we find where the highest ranked player is there, right? So there'll be a U.S. representative and a Canadian representative. And then, as Pete touched on, the new news is that the next highest ranked player would earn that ranking. And currently it would be, Cameron is in first, Stowe is in second. That would be Canada, US respectively. There's Gary Mawson sitting in third. So Gary Mawson would be the person that would take the opportunity there. Moving down, the winner of the Continental Cup, Pete talked about and made the announcement, will play in the Mr. Vegas Grand Slam of darts. And, we saw what an opportunity Stowe Buntz took and ran with that. And, those are the opportunities that could be career changing. And of course, we've been bestowed with the Continental Cup winner also earning a spot next summer back on stage at MSG for the PDC US Darts Masters and PDC North American Championship. So we'll go back to the boys now. Digest that a little bit. Let me know if there's anything else so you can take down the graphic. So not only a Continental Cup championship there, but, some bells and whistles to play for, right?
Yeah, I can't wait for somebody to interview the Continental Cup champion and say, congratulations, you're going to Wolverhampton. I mean, it doesn't rank right up there. Doesn't rank up there with going to Disney World. It's not the Alley Pally. It's not Blackpool. I mean, it's a little bit better than Milton Keynes, but not so much. So, I mean, obviously, I'm joking. It's a huge PDC event. But of all the places to get to punch your ticket to, Wolverhampton as a town probably isn't in the top 50.
Residents of Wolverhampton addressed the complaints to Peter Citera, P.O. Box ABCD, Sheboygan.
Oh my gosh. Actually, it's really cool. Pete, so Stowe Buntz obviously had his run in that. Peter and I went up to Wales for an evening and threw some darts against some locals up in Wales. One of those locals actually is originally from Wolverhampton and did go to the Grand Slam. So small world where he knew Stowe Buntz and saw the quarterfinal where, it's really cool just to kind of be able to have our players. It made Stowe one of the most recognizable players of the World Darts Championship last year. Whereas Alex Spellman could just hide under the radar of the US #1, Stowe Buntz was very much noticed everywhere he went. It was really funny, even if they were right next to each other. So having those opportunities is big. It really is big. And I'm excited for it. Again, just to see all the opportunities that are given based on what you guys started is really, really cool. Congratulations to everyone involved in that. That's really awesome, guys.
I mean, kudos to Dan Dawson for slapping Stowe with the world's best nickname too, right? The Neon Nightmare.
That worked out pretty well, I must say. I think we've got a question, so we'll intersperse some questions from everybody. Let's see if production's got a question ready for us. I believe so. Okay, from Paul Rogers. Doesn't Gary Mawson have dual citizenship? Peter can more expertly answer that question.
Yeah, I don't think he's given up his Canadian citizenship, but he declared as a U.S. player. He's been a U.S. player since 2016. And so, from our perspective, he is a U.S., permanent resident citizen. And so from our perspective and from the PDC's perspective, he is an American for purposes of these events. And, with the PDC, when you have the national events, it's PDC rule that as long as you're eligible, because you're either a citizen or you've lived in a country as a permanent resident for at least 5 years, you have the ability to choose that country to represent in these when nationality matters. With the caveat that once you choose, you can't choose again for another 5 years. And so, Gary's an American. We'll accept him. We'll put the stars and stripes on him, and definitely be supporting him the whole way if he goes over there.
So thank you for that question. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Keep them coming. We'll dip back into questions as we wrap up later. So now from here, let's set the table then. So then. We keep rolling. We actually are back in the same venue, the Holiday Inn in outside Chicago, the opening weekend of August 3rd and 4th for weekend number 3. So I'll announce our events that weekend. Saturday morning, we open up with the A to Z Darts Trophy, move Saturday evening into the Boomerang Tours Fiesta, and on Sunday, we we close that weekend with the Dart Connect Challenge. So we appreciate our sponsors and our supporters. So also to set the table for that weekend, as we've touched on, we're really proud to have up a second stream, so you can enjoy the action over that weekend. Sean and I will be behind the microphones again, for good or bad, my friend. It is what it is. Hopefully we can keep some people around.
Good for us. It's good for us.
Our feature board will be on PDC TV and YouTube. So you can find our YouTube channel, Champ Darts, and subscribe and hit the notification bell and be all set. You can also go to PDC TV and subscribe if you're not a member. We'll also put the links on our social media platforms so you can get a subscription to that. And then Stream 2, as Peter has laid out, we select boards to go compete on each stream. So Stream 2 is also going to be available on PDC TV and as sort of a bonus and teaser out on Facebook. So it gets everybody excited for the events. Sitting there in your feed as you wake up on Saturday, and the great darts are getting ready to roll, and then you open up multiple windows and we rock and roll on 2 platforms, right? So that's how to find us, and that's what's coming up the first weekend in August. Okay, let's before we see if we've got any preview of that weekend, I don't want to leave weekend 2 without talking about the associates. As Peter talked about, the associates list is we introduced it this year, our Q schools and our summer series, which we'll promote that in a second. Tomorrow, Steel City Open shootout, don't miss it. Get there. We'll promo that again before the end of the show. But players can earn points in those events and be on the associates list. And if there is a pre-registered field that dips just below 64, we will extend invitations. And that's what we did for weekend 2, when we were very thrilled that these associates stepped up and came to play. We could name all of them. I don't want to disrespect anybody, but I also know that we were fortunate enough to see some of them on stream. We saw Nathan Humphries, Jeff McDaniel, and did we not? We saw Davey Main. I believe those were the players that got opportunities to compete, and it was a real thrill to get to. And you could tell that they were excited at the opportunity to get to compete with CDC tour card holders, and most of them, as inherent in their attendance at a Q school, their desire is to be a tour card holder. So first to Pete, and then to Sean. But Pete, any interactions with those guys, coming for the weekend and sharing their experiences?
Yeah, certainly they stop at the desk, and it's kind of they're newbies, so kind of getting the lay of the land and getting their sea legs. Big shout out.
They're the ones that are paying attention to the player brief.
Good, exactly. As a matter of fact, Davey Main sent me an email saying, "Thanks for the brief. I read it." So those of you tour card holders out there that think you're too cool to read the brief, others are doing it. It's the player brief.
He was the one.
And we don't send it out. Then the guy's like, "You didn't send the player brief." I'm like, "Come on, dude, you haven't read one in 14 years." So anyway, if you're talking about, it's it's a running joke with us, but I got to give a shout out to Anthony Chincholo, right? You had a run. You got a chance to play on a Sunday. He had a run to the top 16. He's a guy that just had some terrible luck at Q school. He was a card holder last year, had some injuries, couldn't retain his card because he couldn't play. And, now he wants to get back on the tour, and he had the opportunity. So that was just nice to see him get in and make some noise and get himself a little paycheck.
And just before I go to Sean, you touched on, we had players that were registered for the full weekend, but we had players that just came down on Sunday and played, and not only Anthony, but Nick McCoy was one of them as well. So really impressive and dedication to want to come down and play against North America's best. So kudos to those guys. So Sean, give me your take on that before we jump into sort of looking ahead.
What we're what we're doing, what we're trying to build, right, is experience and knowledge for the future of the sport for all these players, right? We mentioned it earlier, like being on stream versus not, the players liking it or not. The real deal is that it puts a pressure on the players they're not used to seeing if they've never been there before, and used to feeling if they've never felt it before. Colin Rath is a great example of that. Very first weekend, put him on stream. He was nervous, struggled. Then we put him on stream twice this past weekend. He said he was just a lot more relaxed, a lot less nervous. And so to see Davey Main on stream on Sunday and perform very well was really exciting to see. And same thing for all the players. It's really cool to see that associates list. I know that one of my buddies is in 20th spot on that associates list, and he was waiting for that. He was excited, hoping that 19 people would pass up so that he could get that spot. So he's waiting for that. And you mentioned it. You have the Steel City Open this weekend, and then next weekend you have the match play as well, if I'm not mistaken, right, Pete? So there's two events coming up here to get some points to potentially be on that associates list for the next event weekend. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, and the Q school points on that associates list expire at the end of the year. The summer series actually end up for a full 12 months. Those points remain on the list. So they're actually, in some respects, more valuable than the Q school points. So, if you're looking to get yourself invited and want to put yourself in a good position for next year, should you not get a card at Q school, then, come out and get yourself on the list.
Yeah, Davey Main was a good example of that. He win under his belt on the feature board, got to play more than once, got the exposure, and he talked about it in a social media post. He felt he earned a lot of experience this past weekend, more than possibly in the last few years, So if the summer series, we'll promo that a little bit, is just really getting underway. We had one event in Oregon earlier, but we still have 3. Tomorrow is the CDC shootout. Next weekend is the CDC match play. And then as the summer concludes right at the end of August is the CDC congressional. And they all have cool twists and turns. Tomorrow is a double in, double out event. Next week is the match play, similar, of course, to PDC match play. Got to win by 2, and then the congressional is a UK Open style redraw. So every round gets redrawn. So a lot of things to be to appealing there. Different types of play. CDC tour card holders are involved, so you get a little chance to play against some of those players, and you get a CDC feel. And of course, now some associates lists. Sean.
Just last point, I just want to give to you guys huge kudos, because one of the main complaints that I think that a lot of players have is, not having those full fields from the past couple of years, when are we going to bring back the qualifiers, all that stuff. What a cool way to fill the field with this associates list, and also do it in a way where those other events really matter, and it is really rewarding to those players that put in a lot of work and dedication to try and earn their tour card. So I just want to give a huge kudos and shout out to you guys. I think that that's something that moving forward, you guys, I think is this going to work? And it's been great. So hopefully it continues that way. But I just want to give a huge shout out to you two and to the rest of the staff for coming up with those ideas. It was great.
We appreciate that very much.
I love seeing it. It's nice to be able to pull these guys in. Obviously, the qualifiers that we used to do were one way to do it, and there's a lot of people that would love to see that. But this kind of you got to be serious, right? If you really want to be on that list, you have to wait for you to be serious without being a tour card holder. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the fact that if you're a tour card holder, you've got money that only you can win, right? There's $10,000 an event, $30,000 a weekend, and there's only tour card holders and/or associates members that are eligible for it. Nobody's coming in from Sheboygan, and I don't think we get any tour card holders from Sheboygan, but nobody's coming in from Sheboygan to take your money, to take your lunch, eat your lunch. So it boggles my mind.
Poor old Sheboygan.
Yeah, I usually go with Poughkeepsie, but
I like Shipshawana.
But it boggles my mind. What if you're a tour card holder, come out, man. I mean, this isn't. It isn't. There's not 38 events on the weekend where it might be 10 grand, but you're only going to walk away with $250. After playing for 4 hours in the 301 double in, double out.
Yeah, Pete, I mean, what have we just done for the last half hour, right? Is lay out all of this stuff. Like you just, $10,000 for an event, 3 a weekend, 30 on that weekend. Those opportunities, you get a chance to go to the Continental Cup. Continental Cup is going to be 12 and a half grand, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? Pete's like, hey, calculate right there, Eugenia. But and then all that whole list, we pulled up a list of opportunities that the PDC has afforded us, and then the players get that all translates into prize money. There's a lot on the table to come compete for.
There is. And to be fair, this year's the success continues. It's incumbent upon us now to create more opportunities for the players who are 16 to 32, and we'll look at ways to do that too. So obviously we just keep kind of growing and getting stronger and stronger in terms of averages, in terms of fields, in terms of players. So where you all want to be will come. It's just you've got to do it in a way that's intentional, that gets you to where you want to be without going over your skis and wiping out.
And we haven't really we've touched on it, but we haven't specifically addressed it. I mean, in all of this is also the emergence of gaming now. You go to nxtbets.com/playcdc and you get information on how to sign up as things unfold. Pete talked about this past weekend. We're now acknowledged and registered in 20 different states, right? And so in those states, and where there's a bookmaker that takes things, hangs bets. This past weekend, you could wager on all of the first round matchups plus event winner odds that they put up. So that's a whole package to this thing that not only increases the excitement of fans of being interested in who these players are, how good are they, what are their ups and downs and their personalities and all that kind of stuff, but it's the potential of just what you talked about, giving a new platform for the 17 to 32, 33 to 64 players, more prize money, more opportunities. It's a big day in the world of the CDC. So we've got weekend 3 coming up. We just talked about that. Chicago again, events 6, 7, and 8, A to Z Darts Trophy, Boomerang Tours Fiesta, Dart Connect Challenge. Keep up to date on everything. Subscribe to the newsletter. You can click on the link in the comments here in our chat tonight. You can also go to champdarts.info/in-the-know, and you could directly sign up for the newsletter. Okay, that was given to me by KJ. So keep up on tabs for everything. Then weekend 4 late in August in Niagara Falls, weekend 5 back in Indianapolis in September. That leads us to the 2024 CDC Continental Cup Tour Finals Championship presented by Cosmo Darts, October 18th and 19th at the Columbia Social Club in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So we're thrilled to be back in Philly. Happy to bring one of our majors, if you will. We've been there with tour events. So we're going to now, go and have a ticketed spectator event and have what I think is going to be a blast in Philly. So I'll turn it over to Pete for just a minute on expectations about maybe tickets and anything like that about Philly.
I'm thrilled to be back in Philly. I mean, those guys do it up right. There's not a better dart city in the United States in terms of support. They week in, week out, there's always something going on in Philadelphia, and they fill it up and they support, and I know they'll support us. So it's really cool to go back there. In terms of tickets, we need some behind the scenes stuff. We got to get the floor plan in place, figure out what it's going to look like. It's a new venue in terms of a ticketing perspective for us, and so to be able to put tickets on sale, we got to figure out exactly how many tables are going to be there, where they're going to be, what they're going to look like, and we got to then figure out price points and all that. So there's some work to be done. Hopefully, we can I'll get out, or somebody can get out to Philly, and we can plan that out and get those on sale. I would hope that we'd be ready to go on sale somewhere early to mid-August, and I really feel like we will sell out. Hell, we sold out the cross border in Michigan City this year, so let's get a streak going, right? 2 in a row. It's a streak.
Let's do it.
Done for.
I mean, you almost sold out MSG, Madison Square Garden. So, yeah, you got to throw that out there too, right, Pete? Look, 2 words: Philadelphia cheesesteak. Okay, so I'm in. I'm looking forward to all the food options that are available. If anyone knows me, I like to eat. But
if
also,
you can't go down to Philly and have a fun 3 days, then that's your problem.
Exactly.
I'm out.
I have a lot.
Sorry, I'm just not a food guy. I'm out.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm excited. A lot of my friends and stuff like that, I've become like one within the Philadelphia community, right? Work with the Philly legend, Tim Neal, with our, stream sponsor. So he gets made fun of every time he goes back home. So I'm very excited to go to Philly for the first time in like that dart community. I want to see some American darts. Someone better show me some of those. I'm ready to go. Let's have a blast. I'm looking forward to it.
Right. So
That's the wrinkle of the Continental Cup. We're putting up a Witty board.
Yes.
I'm in.
I'm kidding, Eugenia. I'm kidding. Don't put that in the notebook.
No. We're doing
it. He knows me. I'm going to take that and run with it. For those listening overseas,
we now have 2 events
on the podcast in the next couple of days. Witty board is what's called American darts, and they're wooden darts and very unique style to the eastern part of the United States. Wonderful game, but very very regional. But it's why a lot of Pennsylvania players have come out and been national powerhouses based on their skill at that form of darts. One Big Daddy Darren Young being one of them, and it's never a bad time to give Big Daddy Darren Young a shout out, as Sean and I were looking over the weekend. Also tied with Larry Butler for the most overall wins on the championship darts circuit. So let's broaden our perspective a little bit. I want to turn to my partner. Let's move the scope a little bit. Peter Citera is getting on a plane, I think, tomorrow, and the sister company of Championship Darts Corporation south of the border, we've got the opportunities for CDLC. So give us a little bit of what's coming up this weekend, right?
Yeah, it's literally Saturday and Sunday. We kick off the 2024 Championship Darts Latin America and the Caribbean Tour, CDLC. So that is our tour that's exclusively for people in Central and South America and the Caribbean. We've got 4 total tour events. We'll have 2 this coming weekend in Montego Bay, Jamaica. It's really cool because we're actually kicking off the week that is the Caribbean Cup. And so, it's a really nice venue, really cool venue. I'm excited to be there. And hopefully we'll get some good attendance. We don't do advanced registration for those. I know that a lot of our Costa Rican folks are already there having a good time. I got a bunch of pictures from one of the local establishments that overlooks the water, and so I was a little jealous. But yeah, it really is. It's gonna be really cool. Obviously, Norman Maddu looking to once again lock up a spot at the Alley Pally. Sudesh Fitzgerald, his partner from Guyana, is there. I think you'll probably see some of the Costa Rican guys make a run. Nicaragua's put in good shows recently, so there's some talent that is up and coming. The averages down there aren't where they are up here, but we had to start somewhere too. And so it's really cool to watch those guys down there really kind of catch the fire for it and catch the passion for it. And I know we'll have some great competition. And then in October, we'll be down once again in Santiago, Chile. And we'll close out with 2 more events there. So, CDC/CDLC, it wasn't enough just to be in the U.S. and Canada. No, we needed to have a presence in the entire frickin' hemisphere because somebody thought that was a good idea. Sorry, folks. And so, I'm really, really excited about what that is. The travel sucks.
Yeah. So just to frame it, like four tour events, and then off of those tour events at the beginning of it, we hold the World Cup qualifiers. That's how Guyana was up there, and as you talked about, Costa Rica is been knocking on the door now for 2 straight years on making appearances on a world stage. And then we've got one spot available at the end of those 4 events, correct, in the Paddy Power 2025 PDC World Championship. So from CDLC to London, England.
Yep. Yeah. So somebody's going to get, I mentioned Norman Maddy, who got the spot last year, but, not without challenge. It was not easy. So, we'll see if some of the Brazilians or the Costa Ricans or the Nicaraguans can give him a run for his money. There's some players to watch. Maybe I'll go live from down there, do some interviews. We'll see what time looks like. But if you're interested in kind of what's going on in that neck of the woods, follow that page on Facebook, CDLC. It's Championship Darts Latin America and the Caribbean. Give it a follow. Jeff Good does a wonderful job down there, kind of being the day-to-day boots on the ground. And he'd love to see. We'd all love to see you following that.
All right, so yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that. We'll look forward to this weekend's coverage. So now let's completely turn into dart geeks and fans, right? In Blackpool, England this week, the PDC Betfred World Match Play. And I believe James Wade won today as the quarterfinals opened up. So definitely turn it over to you guys as my alarm goes off. End the show. That was the alarm, but we'll disregard that. Turn it over to you two guys to fandom a little bit, and what's been going on at the match play.
What I really like about James Wade is that his interviews are never controversial. They're just very rote, and you know what to expect out of him.
Straight up and down, nothing. Yeah, very vanilla.
Right. Exactly.
Said no one ever.
Exactly. Ross Smith going into that match, I tipped Smith to win it, but Wade does what Wade does. He's talk about a guy who lives on his finishing, right? And if he's within 140 points, he's a darn good chance he's gonna come in and pinch legs from you. That's just what he is. And one of the things he said in an earlier interview was, I'm a guy who I'm here, I'm playing. Nobody ever mentions my name because he's just kind of a journeyman. But obviously results are what they are. The thing tomorrow, the match I'm interested in watching is MVG and Andrew Gilding. Andrew Gilding once again coming out at a major, just kind of making a name for himself, right? UK comes out of nowhere to win the UK Open last year. Here we are in the quarterfinals of the match play. It's great, world-class entertainment.
Yeah,
match play
as a dart fan. Yeah, go ahead. You do your thing.
No, just obvious with the obvious, the MVG Littler. So take us there, Sean.
I mean, you want to talk about textbook old school MVG from like 2017, 2018, who just hands down dismantled a very, very, very informed, tough Luke Littler in that match. And I want to make it perfectly clear that all MVG did was wait for opportunities, and every single one of those, he just capitalized on it. He stayed with them scoring. That's cool, kid. Watch this. I'm going to do the same thing. Awesome. You can hit another 180. That's a fantastic, kid. Watch this. And I think he just, as the underdog, really wanted to come in and just let everybody know, hey, he's 17. I don't need to be the underdog here as the best player in the world. So moving forward, I think he put a little bit of that on notice, and I don't know how he doesn't do that in match one and then not win this whole thing. So we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of darts left to be played. Andrew Gilding can wait out the best of them in that match. So I love just how nonchalant he looks like when he throws every single time. It's always wonderful. But really looking forward to the rest of this. I thought today James Wade beat Ross Smith at his own game. 13 180s. He actually stayed there power for power with Ross Smith, which when James Wade can do that, he is more than brilliant and capable of winning. It actually is a weird juxtaposition on Gary Mawson this weekend, right? Nobody really talks about Gary. He ends up in that top 16 every year and in that top 10 and, just does what Gary does. And same thing, James Wade, just no one really mentions him, whatever, but it's James Wade, it's Gary Mawson. So maybe this is the weekend that James breaks through like Gary did this past weekend.
Luke Humphries was also super impressive again today. A big performance, big average, and he's done that in every round now through the match play. So he came into the event as the favorite, and he remains the favorite. So a lot more to watch from Blackpool. Anything else on the PDC, boys? Before we go to some questions.
That second quarter, Michael Smith, Rob Cross, Smith. Made a statement coming into this event, right? I think he's just as likely as anyone else to leave hoisting the trophy. I'd love to see a MVG Wade matchup again. I'd love to. Talk about roll back the years, going back a little bit, right? I'd love to see that. I think that's something that'll get some news and a whole lot of eyeballs.
I'm in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to grab my popcorn on Sunday if that happens.
You betcha. So we talked about him earlier. Just want to shout out Davey Main in the chat following along tonight. So welcome in, Davey. Now we will go to a couple of questions from said chat. The Godfather 170. All right. There's a big lack of Jake McMillan in the top 20. What's happening with him this season? And that is one Jack Garwood, the Gob. From
it's
online
3:30 in the morning, Gob. What the heck are you doing up at 3:30 in the morning? You an insomniac like bars?
The hottest dart show in North America, Pete. That's what he's doing. Yeah, Jake.
Set the alarm. Can't miss TV.
Dart lunatic like we all are. So yeah, Captain Canada, Jake McMillan.
Sean, I'll let you take this one. I have answer, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, so part of the job of being a commentator is talking to the players, and Jake is one of those guys that's really personal, and he's very open and honest. He's been struggling for a little bit. I think just finding his form, finding the range. He came into last season. He was the Doug Bain from last season, right? The Sylvain Bordeaux that we talked about. He came out of nowhere in the U.S. Darts Masters qualifier, got qualified, and just had an absolutely run through a season. It's very expected to have a little bit of a sophomore slump because he's going to have high expectations coming into the season, and a lot of other people are going to have high expectations coming into the season for him. He went from, I don't know when he was signed from Galaxy, but I know it happened, I think last year, right after that run, maybe. So he's got a little bit more pressure on him, on his shoulders. He's traveling more, and he has high expectations. And sometimes that can lead to a little bit of a sophomore slump. That's going to be my best guess for you. I know that he is open about struggling a little bit with his scoring, but he also is very open to the fact that he's working through it. And I think we're going to have a good Jake McMillan by the end of the year again.
Yeah, his talent is too good not to come back to the top, right? I certainly think that he'll look to right the ship and probably will do so this coming weekend. But, your point, Sean, he came out of nowhere. Comes in first weekend last year, ends up going to MSG. That's no wonder Galaxy, or anybody would have signed him at that point, right? Hey, I got a player on stage. So kudos to Galaxy for jumping all over that one.
100%.
But
again, I'm going to interject, but again, I love those points when they're on the table. But those are the things, right? You play, you get opportunities, and it's like, well, how do I get sponsorship? And that's how it happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sorry, I derailed you there. Boom, we're talking. Go ahead, continue.
Bob's not from Wolverhampton, is he? If so, I may need to.
No, Gob is not. But Gob is my. We appreciate the support. Thanks for sitting with us, and he is my James Wade compatriot. We were messaging today. Go on, Wadey. So moving on. Tony Cullen asks, I know. 2024, no Canadian stops.
Will you be revisiting?
Will. Right in full words, my man. Will you be revisiting north of the border in 2025?
See, Tony, we could have translated that into Eugenia, but it was much more fun to watch him kind of flail with it. No, I'm kidding.
I don't speak text.
That says the dude who punctuates his text, me, right? But
wait, first of all, before you get into that, I just want to say these are the two gentlemen, by the way, who are part of a staff group where they only do voice messages to each other in text form. So if you want to listen to what they're saying or see that, most of the time you have to listen to it like up to your phone. So so definitely does not speak text speak. Keeping it going, Peter. Sorry.
So yeah, I'm as the CEO of the company, obviously I'm sensitive to the fact that we weren't in Canada. Let me just be candid. We didn't see the turnout with the tour card holders in Canada that we had hoped. And so this year we made the decision not to be there. Now we got as close as you can possibly be. I believe you can spit into Canada from the hotel, the venue we were in Niagara Falls, New York. Not that you'd want to, but I believe that it's close enough to actually do that. So the answer to your question is yes, we intend at some point to be back in Canada. It's tough to call yourself a North American tour when you're only in one of the two countries. I'm sensitive to that. It's got to make the right business decision, right? It's got to make sense for the business to do that. And I think now with the so far success of the associates list, that might be the impetus we need to get back up there. So really good question. Glad you asked it. And, obviously we'd love to at some point be back up there.
Sorry,
really
I have a point to make real quick.
Filling
after
the
Pete.
Fields.
Yeah, so the real question that I have, honestly, and this is the big controversy that no one's ever talked about, why haven't we gone to Mexico yet? That's a North American country, and they are just completely out of it.
Mexico's
and I don't understand
part of the CDLC. They are not part of the CDC. They're CDLC. It's funny. They were kind of an orphan when we started CDC, but when Matt Porter asked me that question about, hey, what do you know about Central and South America? And, I let my mouth write checks that I didn't want the company to cash. We decided that's now part of Latin America and the Caribbean.
All right, that's fair.
Acapulco, 2026.
The only controversy I have is when I'm getting my invites to these CDLC tour stops, because so far I haven't had one of those yet. Jamaica seems nice, doesn't it?
Time out. Get in line, Green. I've been trying to elbow one of those for a good 18 months. Back up.
All right. Bodius. To be honest, it isn't as sexy as it seems. Literally, I fly in tomorrow. I fly out Monday. I will go from the Airbnb to the venue, back to the Airbnb to the airport. I might have a cocktail at some point. The Red Stripe is actually pretty good down there. Really terrible here in the U.S., but really good down there. So I'm not going to lie. I may have a beer or six, but it certainly isn't. It's a work trip. It's not.
So Pete's just exactly. So he's just running a tournament, going to be sweating the whole time, and then he's coming home. So no fun for Citera. All right, but we do have a fun question. All right, so how do we pronounce Nick's last name? Nick Teixeira.
Teixeira.
Is it Nick Teixeira?
Teixeira. Yeah.
Teixeira. Nick Teixeira. So question: AE versus Peter in table tennis. Who wins? I have a clear-cut answer. It's Citera. 6 days a week, twice on Sunday.
It's funny. I got my table tennis game back into shape on the cruise I was on earlier this year. Nothing like playing table tennis when you're going through a nice little storm and going up. It really does get your game going. Funny enough, my uncle is actually used to be a world-class table tennis player. Now he's 80 years old now, but he actually still plays. So, he's the guy that would come in as the dark horse and make me look dumb.
So note to self, I'm not playing Citera. I'm not betting any money against Citera on table tennis. All right. We were also told Nick has a follow-up question. So question from Nick Teixeira again. In the last 5 to 6 years, there's been a clear increase in North American success in overseas events. What does that success look like for our North American players in the next 5 years? Any predictions? Let's go to Sean first. Let's go to Sean, and then the CEO finish us up with that.
Well, honestly, the challenge really is this. The one thing that we are trying to replicate more and more that I think will happen in the next 5 years that we've seen with the Cross-Border Darts Challenge along with the Continental Cup is having a lot more of those staged events where our players are not just getting used to playing against great top competition in long format over a long period of time, but also doing that in front of a whole bunch of people, right? So that's the step that the PDC players kind of have the advantage on us, honestly, right now. So I think that's really the next step. But once I think that obviously the talent's there. We see it all the time. We get frustrated. I get frustrated. I actually get angry, upset. I throw things when our North American players go over there and they don't perform as well as I know that they can. It's the same thing that they feel. It's the same thing that a lot of our fans like myself feel. But it's because we also know that that talent's there and that the opportunity is actually there. We're not watching to hope. We're watching because we expect our players to win. And I think that as long as that continues, we're going to have a lot of success in the next 5-10 years over there.
Yeah, well said. Well said. We've talked about it many times that the only way to be successful is to get players beaten up on each other. When we started this thing, and I mentioned this, Anthony's mentioned this. When we started this thing, we'd send the North American representative over to the World Championship, and whoever it was, they'd go and they'd do their best. But people were kind of looking at that like, I want that draw. Nobody wants Stowe Buntz. Nobody wants Alex Spellman. Nobody wants Danny Lobby. Nobody wants these guys in the first round or indeed any round. So the system is proven to work. The next step is to expand the tour more, bring in more events, get them to do this more regularly, and just then create more opportunities to send people over. But you're talking about to really be successful. And this is something that the guys in Online Darts talk about. It's something that Darts Media talks about. To really be successful at the top level, there's only so much you can do over here. You've got to go be in Europe. That's where the Players Championships are. That's where the Euro Tour is. That's where the televised events are. And it's tough. Moving away. I mean, look at the stress that Danny's under. Look at Jeff was the travel and the amount of time spent away from family. It's a sacrifice. It's funny when we started this whole thing. I kind of put a flag in the ground and said, we are going to have the next North American world champion in the next 10 years. And here we are 10 years from now. And, I kind of look like a jamoke because no, that didn't come true. But
absolutely not.
Well, thank you for emphatically saying.
Well, no, I don't want to take too much space here, but as your partner, we're going to shoot for goals like that, and even if we did not succeed it, we're going to set the standard for ourselves and for what we want to achieve to a high level. And if we weren't going to do that, then why bother? And that's all I just wanted to echo. Even if it doesn't come to fruition, it's still not bad to set those goals and aspirations for yourself, the company, and the platform.
And hey, we got a guy in the quarterfinals of a PDC major, right? I mean, that's the accomplishment there for Stowe is amazing. But it's one small step for the CDC, or maybe it's one small step for Stowe Buntz, one giant step for the CDC. One of the two. I'm not sure which. But it really is great to see these guys going over and doing it. I think that getting the ticket to the second stage of Q School is going to produce some more tour card holders. I know that the PDC is going to look to give us more opportunities. I know that for a fact. It's just a matter of when it's going to make sense to them in their calendar and in their business. Because remember, every spot we take is a spot the PDPA doesn't get. And so, there's politics and dynamics that I think, the average casual fan doesn't necessarily know what goes on. But I'm confident that we'll get more guys out there doing more good things on stage. And one more thing, just to relate to Sean, I wholeheartedly agree that crowd is just a whole different world, right? But really, the sausage making happens behind closed doors. And so I think we replicate the PDC floor events as well as anybody else in the world does, with the exception of the fact that we might play some fun music. Really, it's our guys can do it. I know they can do it because I see them do it here. And if you look at the averages they're throwing up, and against the guys in the floor events, certainly, especially the early rounds of them, they're comparable. Can we touch the top 8? No, not yet. But can we touch 16, 20, 24? Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll see us do more of that going forward.
So my take on that question is the first part of it is as the question was posed from a overseas perspective, right? And it's the word that we used a lot this weekend, Sean, in commentary, and it's usually the absolute key in this sport in so many facets. It's consistency, right? Mm-hmm. So it's getting not just we got a guy into the quarterfinals. It's we've got to get guys on regular basis, right? It's play X player ABC player goes over 2 or 3 wins under the belt, and it's not an eyebrow raising moment. It's a regularity, so that the consistency, right? And then the next part of that maturation is finals. Like you said, do we have players that have the potential to go make impacts and win events? I believe we do. Will that happen in the next 2 or 3, 4 years? Maybe not. But if you get to see players in quarterfinals, finals, like that's the growth and the maturity, but on a consistent basis, not the occasional spike. The other part of that, though, the mind automatically goes to overseas, but I smiled broadly when you touched on, Pete, a definition of success is success for our players is going to be in 2, 3, 4 years. Things play out the way that we certainly hope that they do. Way more increased opportunities to participate, to play, to increase that level, but also monetarily. Big opportunities, big sponsors, big venues, big places to play, like those truly big events with those big numbers that you can tell somebody who's a non-dart fan, that's an impressive number that said player is playing for at the CDC such and such at the wonderful blah 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 establishment, right? That is also, I think, a big part of success, the definition of success for the players and us here in North America. I truly believe that. So any last words, any promos or anything first, Sean, then to Pete, and then I'll close us out. What do you got going on, Mr. Sean?
Well, you know me. I'm going to take this moment just to obviously thank you guys for the opportunity. I am literally just a dart fan from Indiana who has now worked 27 events for the CDC. And when I first started with you guys, Anthony and I had to have a conversation about what a play-by-play commentator actually is. And it wasn't until after the first event of the very first weekend that I worked that I actually figured out what that meant. And for you guys to, have the faith in me to continue on that path from that point forward, to trust me to sit in the chair next to you, Anthony, and be that play-by-play guy, that role that you've always kind of filled in commentary. It means the world. It really does. I'm honored to be sitting here with you guys on this podcast. I'm honored to call you guys friends and colleagues, and hopefully this thing just continues to shoot upwards. That's the goal. And I think that we're right there on the precipice of it. I'll be in Nashville next weekend, so you guys can see that for the match play. So Peter will be there if I am going to promote anything. But yeah, just thank you guys so much for everything. And I want to give a huge shout out real quick. Our production team this past weekend, L. David Irie and Jeff McMahon, and that was it, did such an absolutely fantastic job of running both streams super effectively. Jeff was masterful without his easy stream deck that he uses throughout the first event, and no one would have noticed if I didn't just mention it there. So both of them are absolutely phenomenal and huge in that production team that is 2 people had the job of 14 this weekend. So huge shout out to them for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Here.
That's it's funny when you say 2 people have the job of 14. I mean, we've all been in the production truck, right? We've all seen what it takes to put a PDC event out. They are doing the job of 14 guys. We're not at the Sky Sports level yet, but certainly I'd put our stream up against anybody else's in the world. And it's really is kudos to the vision of David Ireed, the creative genius of David Ireed. Jeff McMahon just willing to do the work 24 hours a day. If you ask him to do something, he's going to do it. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better team to work with. And my kudos in the event to the event world is to the tournament staff, who also put in a lot of work to make those things come on, right? Putting up the standards, taking the standards down, loading the trucks, all the stuff that you don't see that it takes to run these things. The PDC has a team of people to do that too. We don't. It's us. So I was laughing with Anthony the other day. As we were breaking down, I'm like, you think Matt Porter's ever put a standard into a truck? And
nope.
The answer to that
not
question,
once.
and I'm sure he'd say is not once. So, final thoughts on my end. A couple other things. We didn't mention it in this particular show, but kudos to Aaron Quinn and the CDC Junior Evolution Tour. We had our first series of events that were in Charlotte this past weekend. It's a new kind of format for us. Be interesting to see how it plays out over the year. But thanks for putting in the work, and thanks to the kids who came out to play. Remember, we've got 2 spots available, one U.S., one Canada. Actually, in the PDC World Youth Championship, and it just hit me. It's 2 from each, so it's 4. And then we have the JDC spots, right? The U.S. and Canadian JDC World Cup teams and playing the JDC World Championship. So if you've got a dart player at home and they're between the ages of 16 and we go a little bit younger than that too, but between the ages of 16 and 24, now is the time. Come on out. We'd love to see it. And the last thing. We talked about the match play. I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out. This is the 30th match play. 30 years ago, we had our one and only good friend Larry Butler won the inaugural match play. So shout out to that. And the good folks over at the Weekly Darts Cast did a really nice interview with Larry. It just dropped today. So if you're looking for our podcast, you're following us on podcasts, give them a look too. Give that. You won't be disappointed if you're a darts fan in that interview from the Weekly Darts Cast.
Bravo to the Eagle. Thank you, Peter, for that. And I was very remiss that we did not cover the first youth weekend that just happened in Charlotte, as you said. So let's give I'm looking up quickly. I believe Jacob Sa, is how you pronounce the young man's name. He won the first 2 junior events, and then the third one was Benjamin Goddard. So those 2 players won the first 3 junior events. And then Douglas D. Michelle won all 3 of the evolution events in the weekend, I believe, right? Okay.
I think that's DeMcKelly. I think it's DeMcKelly, if I remember correctly.
Pardon me, D. McKelly. So congratulations to Douglas, right? That's easy. Douglas, Benjamin, and Jacob. So congratulations. As Pete said, there's there's 2 levels there, 17 and under and 16 to 23. You can find more info at champdarts.com. We've got weekend 2 on site with us at the end of August in Niagara Falls, and then on site at the Washington Area Open, I believe, right? Those are out 2 and what I say. Oh, what was my
I was wrong.
Oh, okay. Okay.
You were right.
So two more youth weekends, all right? And you go to champdarts.com to find that. All right, we have kept our contributors and all of you way too long, but we have had an absolute blast. So when we're having this much fun, time just keeps moving. So I want to say thank you, and I appreciate for everybody that has listened and supported the show. Thank you very much, Sean Green and Peter Citera, for joining me as contributors for this episode. Thank you to Nils, Jeff, and KJ behind the scenes for getting the episode on the air and getting things out. You guys simply rock. Again, if you want to sign up for the CDC newsletter, you can find the link in the comments. You can scan the QR code on our social media or go to champdarts.info/in-the-know. All right. Also, subscribe to our social media platforms. You find them at Champ Darts. You put in at Champ Darts and you'll find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, in addition to the YouTube page. So thank you very much, and we will see you in late August for the next episode of Shooting the Bull. Take care.
Thanks for joining us for Shooting the Bull, the official podcast of the Championship Darts Circuit. Subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow us at Champ Darts on social media to keep up with all of the latest news on North American darts.